Good morning. On behalf of our Board of Trustees and Converse College, it is my great pleasure to welcome our students, our staff, our faculty, our community members, and our beloved alumni to the 2018 opening convocation of Converse College. Now, this is my third opening convocation, and I've always enjoyed the processional, but I've never been moved to tears until this morning. This one's going to be hard for me to get through, so hang with me. Opening convocation is always a joyous occasion. It is a day when we come together and we celebrate. We note the beginning of the school year. We celebrate our friendships, the connections, and the sisterhood we've already formed in a few short weeks at Converse College. For alumni, we celebrate the reunion and return of those with whom we formed a bond while at Converse. For faculty and staff, we celebrate the hope we place in each of our students as we work to help you find the education, inspiration, motivation, and confidence you need to go forth into the world and be your very best self. These moments, this feeling is true of every opening convocation, but this opening convocation is extra special because today we celebrate a landmark step of Converse moving forward to embrace its core values and to better meet the vision and ideal of its founder, who noted that the well-being of any country depends much upon the culture of her women. In 1968, Converse added to that statement that the well-being of any country depends much upon the culture of all of her women. 50 years ago, Converse College welcomed its first Black students to campus. Those two brave women stepped forward knowing that they would be the first, knowing that they were breaking barriers, and knowing that they would face difficult and uncomfortable situations. They did it for the simple reason that each and every one of you, our students and alumni, made this decision to come to Converse. They wanted to further their education so they could better their lives. I'd like you to take a moment to think back to move-in day or your first day of classes. For some of you, that was just a few weeks ago, and for some of you, that was more years ago than you wish to count. Do you remember the excitement that you felt about beginning college? Do you remember the anxiety you felt? The fear that perhaps you weren't ready for college? The angst that you wouldn't find anyone to be your friend and that you would be all alone, or even worse, that people wouldn't like you or think that you belonged here? If you can remember how that felt, then I'm sure you can begin to understand the incredible courage and fortitude it took Frida Rogers Bird and Margaret Jones Swindler to come to Converse in 1968 as Converse's first African-American students. Progress is only possible because of the courageous. Frida Rogers Bird had planned to be here today, but due to a death in her family, was unable to join us. We are honored to have Margaret Jones Swindler here with us today. Margaret, would you please stand so we can thank you and acknowledge you? We owe Margaret a huge debt of gratitude. Outside of this historic building stands the statue of Marion Anderson, a Black vocalist and one of the most celebrated singers of the 20th century. Marion was thrust into the front of the fight for civil rights when in 1939, she was denied the opportunity to perform for an integrated audience at Constitution Hall by the Daughters of the American Revolution. Hearing of this injustice, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt stepped in, and with her husband, Franklin D. Roosevelt, they invited Marion to sing instead on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., before a crowd of more than 75,000 people and a radio audience in the millions. a much larger and more meaningful audience than Constitution Hall. Marion Anderson went on to achieve a number of other firsts, including serving as a delegate to the United National Human Rights Committee. She participated in the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s and went on to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the National Medal of Arts, the Kennedy Center Honors, and a Lifetime Grammy Achievement Award. Ms. Anderson once said, "As long as you keep a person down, some part of you has to be down there to hold him down. So it means that you cannot soar as you otherwise might." Ms. Anderson's statement made me think of a story I'd like to share with you about one of the scariest moments of my life, and one in which I am more than a little bit ashamed. When my youngest son was 7 years old, we took a family vacation with extended family to the beach. We were playing in the surf, battling the waves, surrounded by cousins and siblings. The waves were very strong that day, and with each wave we crashed through, the current pulled us a bit farther down the beach. I had said to my son several times that we needed to step out and walk back to where we were. But we were having so much fun that we just kept procrastinating. Then the next wave came, and it pushed us just one step farther, and suddenly there was no sand beneath us. We unexpectedly dropped into a deep part of the ocean. Now, in my youth, I was a decent swimmer, but at that moment I was caught off guard, as was my young son. I went under and took in some water, and when I surfaced, coughing and trying to catch my breath, my son grabbed me for help, but inadvertently he pushed me under again. I came up again, struggling for breath, and once again he grabbed onto me for security. And to push himself above the water, I couldn't support myself and him, and I went under again. I never called for help. I never waved a hand. We were less than 20 feet away from my family, and they had no idea we were on the verge of drowning. I came to the surface again, and then I did the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. I took my sweet boy's arms from around my neck so he couldn't grab me again, and I told him to float. Now, he'd only been taking swimming lessons, and it was just 2 weeks before that he learned how to float on his back. And I'll be honest, I made that demand of him not knowing if he would be able to do it in that moment of fear. But with my urging, he did, and I was able to catch my breath and swim us both to shore. Had he not, I'm not sure we would both be here today. As Marion Anderson said, as long as you keep a person down, some part of you has to be down there to hold him down. Some people think that the only way they can rise above is to push others down. Some people do it reflexively because they are scared and feel that the only way they can survive in the world is by showing that they're better than the others, by pushing others beneath them. No matter the reason, purposeful or reflexive, caused by malevolence or fear, the result is the same. Both people drown. With the events last year in Charlottesville and other events we have seen across the world, we are in a time more fraught with hate and fear, and the bias, xenophobia, and racial animosity many of us thought were starting to wane has once again risen to the surface. When we are faced with difficult and turbulent times, it is always best to look to those values that we have embraced. For Converse, those core values are excellence, integrity, exploration, diversity, progress, respect, and community. Today, I would like us to focus on the values of diversity, respect, community, and progress. The value of diversity calls us to embrace and celebrate our diversity and the perspectives, experiences, cultures, backgrounds, talents, and contributions of each person. Respect leads us to value self and others, recognizing the legitimacy of individuality in belief, expression, and perspective, to exercise civility, mindfulness, and responsibility in words and actions. The value of community means we develop a dynamic network of relationships and we nurture the abilities of each member in our community to establish a better whole. And the value of progress challenges us to think strategically toward the future, to advance and to transform the world around us. As I said in the beginning, today is a celebration. But it is not just a celebration, an acknowledgement of the courage of others. Today, I extend a challenge to each and every one of you to embrace these core values of diversity, respect, community, and progress. I challenge you to make an individual and personal commitment to make Converse better, to make Converse a place that accepts its responsibility and rises to the challenge of meeting its ideals. I'm sad to say we do not always do this. We sometimes stumble. We sometimes pull a person down because we think it will make us look better by comparison. We think that we get to select who is part of the Converse family and who must remain on the outside. Instead, I challenge you to rise up, take a stand, lock arms with your sisters at Converse. It is only by joining together and lifting each other up that we shall all soar. I would like to close by reciting a poem by the great Maya Angelou. Human family. I note the obvious differences in the human family. Some of us are serious, some thrive on comedy. Some declare their lives are lived as true profundity, and others claim they really live the real reality. The variety of our skin tones can confuse, bemuse, delight, brown and pink, and beige and purple, tan and blue and white. I've sailed upon the 7 seas and stopped in every land. I've seen the wonders of the world, not yet one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any two who were really the same. Mirror twins are different, although their features jibe, and lovers think quite different thoughts while lying side by side. We love and lose in China, we weep on England's moors, and laugh and moan in Guinea, and thrive on Spanish shores. We seek success in Finland, are born and die in Maine. In minor ways we differ, in major we're the same. I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. Thank you.